Welcome to Party Animal Quilting. I'm Debbie Brown.
Since it's not a party without snacks, I have pretzels with brie cheese on them. Seriously, you have to try it. It's amazing. And I have some Harney Happy Birthday tea. It's a decaf floral tea, and it is purple. If you've never tried it, it's delicious. And also, it's purple. So it's a very weird color if you add milk to your tea. It becomes a lavender gray color, but it's delicious. I'm drinking the tea out of one of my CosBox items. I get a quarterly box of goodies from CosBox. Every item is either sustainable or supports employment in developing countries. The tea carafe is insulated, it has a basket for loose tea, and I just love it. And now for the shoes. I'm feeling a little punky right now, so I am wearing some secondhand LuLaRoe leggings with my socks from my CosBox subscription box. They are gray cotton slouch socks, and then I've just got some Choco sneakers on.
Let's party! When deciding what to quilt on my Going My Way quilt, I know I want to do feathers, I know I want to use feathers, and I know I want to use ribbon candy. I have my bones of the quilt stitched in from last week. So as I'm thinking about the feathers, I want to do feathered spirals, because this is going around in a circle, this block. They are going clockwise around this block, these arrows. So I want to make my feathers spiral going around clockwise. To make a spiral, in my center block I have a chalk pencil and I have a couple circles. These could be plates, it could be a compass. These happen to be long arm quilting rulers because I have them. So I am going to center this ruler and I'm going to draw a half circle. And then I am going to line up a smaller half circle with it and draw a smaller half circle. They happen to be 8 inches, 6 inches, and then I'm going to line up a 4-inch one right here. So that's my spiral that's going to be the spine at the center of my feathers. Now my feather ends right here, and I don't want the spine to end there, so I think I'm going to have that feather spine. Yeah, let's add a quarter to it here. So I'm going to bring that feathered spine so that the spine comes all the way to the end of the block. And you can see it's going clockwise. I want to stitch that spine so it shows up. Again, this is a very colorful, intensely colorful quilt. So this is a 12 weight thread called Glamour. It is rayon, a couple other fibers in here. Again, this is a wall quilt. So it's going to be nice and shiny. It's rayon and metallic, and I'm going to use this bright red to stitch the spiral so that it stands out from what I'm doing. To stitch the feather itself, I'm going to use plain red 50 weight cotton, and in the bobbin for each of these threads I'm going to use an 80 weight red deco bob. So I am going to stitch the spine using the 12 weight Glamour, and I am going to stitch the feather using the 50 weight cotton, and I'm going to use an 80 weight bobbin in all of those. For more information about thread weights and how to use them and what needles, you can check out my Quilting Essentials Thread Needles Batting and Tension class. And then for stitching the feathers, you can check out my Quilting Essentials Machine Quilting Feathers class. But I'm going to take this to the machine and get started stitching. I've threaded a 100 weight needle with this 12 weight Glamour thread, and I'm getting ready to stitch the spiral spine. I have the 80 weight polyester thread in the bobbin, and that way I can use the same bobbin for a lot of different parts of the quilt and not have to worry about running out. It's a thin bobbin thread, and it'll match great with all of these different threads. I'm not going to make a knot with this thread because the stitching is starting and ending in a highly contrasting fabric. So I'm going to leave this to tie and bury later. So there's my bobbin thread, my top thread, and I am going to follow along and stitch this spiral. I have my spine stitched in using the glamour thread, and again, this quilt is so vibrantly colorful that it's the only way I could get this spine to really stand out. So now I want to stitch feathers along here. So if I start stitching feathers at the center of the spiral and stitch a feather all the way over to the next part of the spiral, there'll be no place for the other half of the feather to go. So I have to divide the spiral in half to make room for all the feathers. So I'm going to start stitching here with my 50 weight red thread, my 80 weight in the bobbin. I've changed the needle to a size 90, and I'm ready to start quilting. Here I can make a regular knot. I won't have to tie it manually because this knot won't show against the glamour. So I can take a couple of small stitches and start stitching my feathers over to my chalk line. I'm going to really be relying on the batting in this quilt to do the job for me. Because there's so much color going on, it's a dark, vibrant color. I'm not going to see a lot of the thread. I'm not going to see a lot of the loft. So these are going to be subtle quilting motifs, which is why I'm trying to use some sparklier threads for some of them. So these feathers are getting much longer. I'm going to have a feather that goes from the spine all the way down to the edge of the block. And that is the longest feather in the history of feathers right there. But I think overall it'll look good. feathers will get better from here on in. It feels good. I can feel the loft. I think you can see it, that the double batting is popping these feathers up. So it's going to make them more visible than it would if I'd used regular batting. going to start my feather again in the center. So there's my very subtle feather. I'll try to get some better pictures. But what I want to point out right here is I rarely pick out feathers. But I do not like this one right here in the white. So I'm going to pick out that one feather and I'm going to stitch a swirl in there. I'll show you that. So I've taken out the feather. I've buried the ends. I've tied and buried the knots. And I'm going to start here. A swirl can fill a lot of vacancies. I've put on the walking foot, a size 100 needle, and am using the glamour thread again. I'm going to be stitching over top of the original outline of this block. So here's the finished feather medallion in the center of my quilt. The spiral is going clockwise, from the center out to one edge, and the quilt's perfectly square, so there is no top or bottom of it. I have this one little swirl in here, which I think adds a little bit of character. I have stitched the spiral using Glamour, and I have also stitched the outline of the block using Glamour. The double batting is really giving some nice loft to the feathers here. So I think I'm pretty happy with the center. It's going to blend in fairly well, so I really need to make some high contrast in this outside border that I've stitched in here. So I have some time to think about what I'm going to do there, and we'll have to come up with a plan.